Da-dum. Do 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 do. 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 Ba-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-dum. Ba-dum. Ba-da-da-ba. Da 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 ba ba da da. Bum ba ba da ba ba da da. Ba 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 da ba ba da da. Ba 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 da ba 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 da. Ba 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 da ba 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 ba. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Hey, yo, I have no clue what I'm doing with my with my life. Man, I would love if my laptop had another display out so I could throw it on that screen there. Actually, I could hook up my... I don't have an outlet for my Chromecast, though. I don't have an outlet for my Chromecast, so... I can't cast it. Tis unfortunate. Should I close the blinds behind me? I should probably close the blinds behind me. That's a bit better. The webcam definitely looks a bit smexier. I'm just gonna wait. This tutorial is only going to be like 12, 13 minutes long. The content is very minimum. It's going to be more asking questions. Ooh. Long morning. How many people do you think are going to show up, Mark? Bets. Our usual high is 4, so let's go 2. No one wants to come to the last tutorial. It's the last tutorial. Nothing's going to be taught. Well, something's going to be taught. It's just not the best of somethings. It's going to be very, very dry. in terms of content. Ah. Do 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 do. No one's here yet. 5 minutes left to go. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Nobody left to go for 5 minutes. Yeah, so we're going to spend just doing a quick laydown for those who are watching this afterwards. It sucks for you because this tutorial is mainly question and answer. You guys find something you want coded, find something that you struggled with, and I code it for you. But we're going to do 15 minutes roughly of SQL databasing. And then after those 15 minutes, we're basically done. There we go. I'm just turning dark theme on to this website. So yeah, it's going to be 15 minutes of SQL learning, and then yeah, that's the course. In all honesty, and then you guys get to ask me to code anything you guys want. I don't have access to my VPN at the current moment. I'm a little sick. Yesterday I was really sick. I was vomiting, and my temperature broke actually 41 degrees. Yeah, it was a really bad fever. I was pretty delirious and had to call it a night at around 6:30. I was in bed. I had a light dinner. But yeah, after being sick for longer than is recommended, I'm feeling quite a bit better. Can't say what it was that did me in. May have been food poisoning. May have just been Mark being Mark. My body being my body, hating me every moment. But either way, I was not in the best place yesterday. But today, I am feeling quite a bit better. Wow, I don't think we're actually going to get anybody today. I did post the announcement, I believe. This tutorial is like literally just it's interactive questions. It's supposed to be helping you guys, but oh, I feel like horror. Yeah, I'm legitimately worried that we're gonna get a tutorial in which is just me teaching the 15 minutes of class content, and then no one comes. Because if no one comes, then it's crap. Legitimately, just crap. No. Either way, I have a timer. The moment it hits 11:30, I am supposed to start, regardless of who is here or is not here. And yeah, people might not want to come to this. Like I said, if no one is here in the live chat asking questions, I will just continue teaching SQL. I may cover a bit of Python SQLite, but yeah, that's time. So, looks like I'm going to be teaching to an empty class today. Yay! Okay, well, let's go ahead and pull that off my screen. So, I have two links pulled up here, SQL Zone and a bit of SQLite with Python. This was going to be optional since I was planning on taking questions and doing a bit of a one-on-one student help type situation, but apparently that's not good enough. So I will, I guess, focus a bit more on SQLite. I could probably complete every single one of these tutorials. I'm going to frequently be referring to Google since I am not a SQL master. It's just a matter of I don't want to memorize all the gobbledygook. I'm going to delete these since I was doing a little bit of preparation and yeah, not too much, but so the one that's given to you is this SQLite given, select name, content, population from world. This one is already filled in when you get to the website. You click generate, and pulls the top 50, and then truncates the rest. Truncate is basically a kind of a floor operation. It's a cutoff, hard cutoff. And yeah, we are given this table: name, continent, country, area, population, and GDP. I don't know what GDP stands for. It's not really important. The data itself is not what's important. It's just knowing the table. So this is the type of thing you could expect on a test. We will give you a sample table. We will give you a sample table. It will typically just be the column names and then 3 to 5 entries. That's what it was on the last year's test. And we will ask you to generate a bunch of SQL statements, very similar to this, to do specific operations. And you would write a function. It would return this SQL string, just this SQL string, and that's it. So I would ask if anyone's has any questions or anything, but again, I don't see anyone in my my tutorial at the current moment. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If you guys have better things to do, that's perfectly and totally acceptable, but I do have content to teach at the end of the day. So yes, we're given the table, and each one of these 13 problems, 14 is just a keep going. Each of these 13 statements or problems. Ah, Sarah, you have arrived. I see one person. That's nice. At least I'm not going to be talking to an empty brick wall. I get someone to give feedback. But yeah, you're just going to be generating SQL statements. This is only going to take us 15 to 20 minutes. Past that, you guys are either free to leave. Technically speaking, I do have to host the tutorial for the entire time, but I will just pull up a code editor and start coding some Python database stuff, if that's what ends up happening. If you don't want to be here, don't bother. I'm really just going to be on autopilot. So, large countries. Using the where keyword, a SQL keyword, we're going to just filter the countries in which have a specific population size. So SQL statements are broken into 3 parts: select, from, and where. Select is a statement where you say what you want to select. In this table, we have a name, continent, area, population, and GDP column. So I would specify if I want the name, the continent, the area, the population, and the GDP. So I'm only going to select the name from, and the table is called world, apparently. I learned that from up here. Where, and now I can do anything I like. So for me, population is equal to 200 million. If I submit it, there's the correct answer. I could change this to be whatever I like, however. So I could do 100 million, and there's a 100 million. The question, however, asks you for 200 million, so we're going to do population is greater than or equal to 200 million. This one's rather straightforward. However, per capita GDP. This question is an extension of this question. So we take the existing code and now give the name and per capita GDP for the countries with the population. So I don't know if it's... So per capita, I believe, is GDP divided by the population. Yes. Per capita, this question is extremely vague. You are supposed to watch this tutorial video on definitions. Yeah, GDP divided by population, there's a definition there. You're supposed to watch this video for a mini tutorial. However, in an exam question, because I guarantee you guys there will be a minimum 4-part question on SQL on the exam. What code editor can we practice SQL? SQL is not a language. Okay, it's a language, but it's not a coding language. There is no code variant. The reason I linked this this website right here is this shows you how to use SQL queries in Python. You create a string with the SQL query, and then you would just need to create a database, which it actually walks you through doing. If you connect to a database that doesn't exist, it will create the database. It tells you how to create a table. Right here, create table. That's how you create the table. Yeah, there is no practicing SQL. This website gives you a pre-made table and lets you practice your SQL statements, which is why I link it. However, there is no code editor that lets you do this, and it sucks. It legitimately sucks. Anyways, so yeah, this question is also really straightforward. There is an actual tutorial video that walks you through it. This guy sucks. I hate his voice. I hate everything about him. South America in millions. Another pretty easy question. Remember, you have 3 parts of an SQL query. Select, from, and where. From, in this case, is always worlds. That's the easiest one to pull in. Reading the question, show the name and population in millions. So there's already going to be name and population. However, population needs to be divided by 1 million. In the countries of the continent South America. So I know that my where is going to mention continent, and I'm going to use an equals, and very important for SQL, single quotes. Double quotes is a column name. Single quotes is a string. This is very rare to see, but it is done in SQL for some reason. Now, South America, the question specifically capitalizes South America like this. Whoops, that's not worlds, it's world. It capitalizes South America like this for a good reason. In our questions, however, on the exam, there is a good chance that we could say South America may not be capitalized. So if I wrap lower, no matter the capitalization of the continent, it will force it to be lowercase, much like in Python's dot lower. So in Python, you could imagine this as continent dot lower. However, in SQL, lower is just a function you have access to. I highly recommend using lower when you're doing equality searches and stuff like that. This question is very much the exact same, except it's not population per million. I kid you not. So lowercase name equals France. However, look, now we have France, Germany, and Italy, meaning there are multiple conditions. There's France, there's Germany, and there's Italy. If the name is either of those 3, then we want to return the population and name. However, notice how if I put and, it breaks. There's nothing, because name cannot be both France and Germany and Italy. So logic in SQL works exactly like in any other programming language. It's just a capital or a capital and. I'm gonna just zoom in a smidge. But yeah, SQL is not hard. It's just learning the syntax. For example, United. Show countries which have the name including United. Now, in Python, we have keywords like in. SQL does not have keywords like in. Instead, it has regular expression pattern matching. Regular expressions are quite advanced. Advanced to the point where we do not teach them to you in the scope of this course. In fact, I don't even think that they are taught to you until the discrete mathematics program year 2. That's when you learn properly what a regular expression is, and it's taught to you in set theory, not code. So it's never helpful. Regular expressions are something you are expected to look into on your own, but they go very much like this. So you take whatever you want the regular expression to match, then you give it a like keyword or match keyword or something like that, and you give it a string. Now the string would have a template character in SQL that is %, and it states that anything could go here, whether it be a series of random characters, blah, blah, blah. However, I know that the word united needs to be between these two random strings. So this % on the left side says that anything can come before the word united, and this % on the right side says anything can come after the word united. Now, if I remove this one on the right side, it fails because there is nothing. If I remove on the one on the left side, it still gets the correct answer because united happens to be the first word every time. But includes just means that it could be anywhere, and so you should wrap a % on both sides. I don't think we would get any more specific with this. However, again, if you guys just go to Google, SQL includes substring, you could Google it, how to check if a string contains a substring in SQL. And here's a couple ways. If char index, well, that seems a bit complicated. %, then the expression defined, and then a %. Well, that's exactly what we did, using the like predicate. So the first thing I Google searched, immediately found it. Do not be afraid to Google if you do not remember something. 2 ways to be big. What is this question? I haven't even done this question. As you can see, from here on out, I didn't do any pre-studying like the other ones. 2 ways to be big. A country is big if it has an area of more than 3 million square kilometers or a population of more than 250 million. So I'm going to paste in my template code. Show the countries, population, and area. Lovely. Where? So we have 2 different conditions, and they are joined by an OR. Notice how the question specifically uses the keyword OR. So we know that it's going to be 2 conditions. One condition is on the area keyword, and the other is on the population keyword. Now, if the area is greater than, strictly greater than, 3 million, I believe that's 3 million, or the population is more than 250 million. If I submit the query, boom! Nice and easy. So it's just read the questions, generate the SQL statement, and in a test, you would be given something like this. So def question 1a takes in nothing, and what you would do is you would then say return, select name, population, area, etc., etc. You just type in the SQL statement and return it. You would just simply do that. It has to all be on one line in Python. That's one of the disadvantages. But yeah, that's what you would expect on a test. I'm going to keep going. At any point, if I'm going too fast, if anyone is still here, I don't know if anyone's still here, but if anyone's still here, you can stop me, but I am going to keep going. Exclusive OR, known as XOR. Yes, XOR. This is something that is taught to you in discrete math, so show the countries that are big by area or big by population, but never both. So it's the exact same as the previous question. However, using the XOR. However, there is no XOR. Well, XOR doesn't exist. XOR is what is known as a combination thing. So XOR is when, if you had two variables, Python tutor. I need Python tutor for this, so I can just quickly. So true and true, and I'm going to print true and true. True and true, as we all know, just returns true. Python tutor is not what I thought it would be. Yeah, there we go. Print output, true. And true and false does false. True or false does true. False or false, false or true. That's how you would expect it. XOR, denoted by Python's up arrow, operates slightly differently, where true XOR true returns false. So it works exactly like you expect OR to work. However, OR in Python would return true in this statement. XOR returns false. So that's what we need to kind of come up with a way of coding. Now, one thing you could do, SQL XOR statement, you could Google it, because XOR it has no operator, but it is a combination of existing operators. So let's see if he gives an example. Yeah. So XOR is apparently an operator. However, this said XOR wasn't an operator. Let's take a... Yeah, this doesn't see XOR as... So we're going to have to do the tedious way of defining exclusive OR. So exclusive OR is defined by a couple properties. There is a not property where both items cannot return true. So if I have area and population, the not of this has to return true. So this can't be true and this can't be true. And I can have one or the other. So again, if I take these and wrap them in an OR, these are my two conditions that have to be true. Both of them are not true, and one of them is true. That is the long explanation of XOR, and I am actually extremely happy that this does not give you an XOR operator, because, yeah, XOR is a figment of our imagination. XOR doesn't exist, essentially. It is just a bunch of nots. In fact, you could define this entire thing without using OR. So I could say and not populate. Actually, I would need OR for a second statement if I were to do it that way. because I could say and not. So or just makes it better. Yeah. XOR, I'm really recommending you guys do 8 and really try and understand the the implications, because XOR is something that is genuinely testable. I will say that. We would definitely give you like, okay, area can be this, but population cannot, or population can be this and area cannot. That's the type of sneaky that we would do. Anyways, rounding. Show the name and population in millions and the GDP in billions of the continent South America and round. Ooh, this is a long one. Okay, so I already have a South America guy. So I'm going to copy this query. And what's changing now is GDP is in billions. So billions is, ooh, does this tell you? Yeah, there's billions. So if I just paste it in billions, do you think this will work? Well, no, because it's not being rounded. Look at how many decimals there are. They're absolutely insane. What I need is to use the round function, like so. I believe. I'm doing this from memory, so don't kill me here. Yeah, I remembered. Yeah, round is exactly like it is in Python. It is, without hesitation, exactly like you think it is. Round, item you're rounding, number of decimal places. This question's not hard, but it's to teach you guys that you have access to round. Because remember, your Python code can't touch this. Your SQL query in a test, you return only the query. You get no Python code whatsoever. You return just this string. So if we ask you to round, you don't have access to math.round. So you guys need to know how to round things yourself using SQL. $1 trillion economics. Okay. Show the name and the GDP per capita, so divided by population, of countries with at least $1 trillion GDP rounded to the nearest thousandth. Okay. So, select name GDP divided by population from... I always capitalize keywords, so that way I can tell them apart. I don't think it actually matters if you capitalize keywords. From world, where the GDP is at least 1 trillion, so 1 trillion is also completely and totally valid. However, we have to round this guy to the nearest 1,000th dollar. Now this is horrible because it's not decimal places. Like, you normally, if you want decimal places, you would just do 2 decimal. But you need almost to go negative. You would have the decimal be going more. So 1,000 is 1, 2, 3 decimal shifts, I believe. And there we go. So you move the decimal this many spaces. -3 spaces. You want it to go closer in to the number. Name and capital that have the same length. This one's already given to you, which is meh. But I guess they're teaching you the concept. So the name and the length of name, the continent and the length of the continent, and the capital and the length of the capital from the world, where the name begins with the letter G. So that's what this question does. However, they want us to modify this so the number of characters here is equivalent to the number of characters in the capital name, which is represented by this. Really? So they want us to then print only the name and continent, and none of this other gobbledygook. And there we go. No. Show the name in the capital where the name... not len continent, len capital. There we go. Ha. It's not continent's capital. So yeah, you just had to modify the sample code given to you to actually do what it wanted. Question's not hard, I just don't like that they really gave you sample codes, since the whole point of this is to learn to Google. Matching name and capital. The capital of Sweden is Stockholm, both of which start with the letter S. Show the name and the capital where the first letters match. Do not include countries where the name and capital are the same word. Ooh. That is cool. So I genuinely don't know how to do this one. So what we want to do is where the left of name 1 is equivalent to the left of capital 1, and we are given a not equals, lower name is not equal to lower capital. And I'm assuming I can just do that. Capital. Whoops. Capital. Yep. That's a pretty fun one. I will say this is not actually using SQL, because SQL has a not equals operator just like that. This asks you to use a custom not equals, however. So, additionally, you could just say not equals. That is also 100 total % valid. All the vowels. Contain all the vowels. They don't count because they have more than one vowel. Oh, this is going to be... This is going to be hard. So name not like is going to be one of those what we use to find spaces. So I'm going to use lower because lower is going to be a lifesaver, so we don't have to capitalize A and recheck for the capital of A. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep generating an AND statement for every character, and I think that's all it wants. I'm not really picking up a subtle A-E-I-O-U and no space. It's just one country. Yeah, so it contains an A, contains an E, contains an I, contains an O, contains a U, doesn't contain a space. That one's pretty standard. This question is worded really hostilely, like really horribly, but I think If we were to give you something like this, we would make it explicitly clear that this is what you had to do, because the query shown misses countries like Bahamas and Belarus because they contain at least one A. That's useless. It is completely and totally useless. But yeah, this is really all you would need to know for a test. We would not ask you to generate a database. We would not ask you to insert into the database, or if we do ask you to insert into the database, you guys would just Google it. But yeah, that's I kid you not, that's it. That's all I had for today. I could show you, like, here's some Python code. There's no real point to me going over this Python code, though. Like, there's no point in me coding it because this does such a good job of explaining what would happen. Like, it inserts into the table fish the following values. Sammy, who's a shark, there is 1. Jamie, cuttlefish in tank 7, etc., etc. You just insert, 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 insert. Nice and easy. You want to read? Well, there's your select. And then you just call fetch all on it, and it outputs that. Like, it seems as if there's no point to going over this, because at the end of the day, I think this is out of the scope of what we would ask for you on a test. And at the end of the day, you guys are all just here because this stuff is testable. We might test you on delete from. Delete from has a special syntax. It's called a question mark syntax. You guys would have learned this in class, but delete from table where name equals blank, and then you would pass in a tuple containing these blanks. Those question marks you would replace with the following variables. It is safer to do it this way because you're less likely to do SQL inject attacks, is what they're called. But so see how this question mark and this question mark, Python will automatically check the variable new tank number and moved fish name to see if there are any illegal characters or illegal code in them, and then we'll update the table accordingly. But yeah, like, there's not much of a point in me covering any of this stuff because it's all pretty straightforward. Another thing I have linked in the description below are some matplotlib exercises. Again, matplotlib is one of those things where we can't test you on it. There's not much we can do. Matplotlib, sadly, is just all about taking data and giving it a graphical representation. What does the Autograder do? Well, it checks data against data. So at the end of the day, we can't test you on a graphical representation because the Autograder can't see the graphical representation. It sees the data, and then the graphical representation is for you as a human. So any question that we gave matplotlib, the public test cases would show you guys charts and all that, but at the end of the day, what we test you on is purely, can you return the data we expect? So it's not a hard question, so what's the point in covering it, right? Like, the disadvantage of everything taught after test 3 is almost none of it is testable. We cannot, unless it were purely like a multiple choice test, like in person, we would have given you guys a printed piece of paper with data and a chart, and we would have asked you, does this data produce this chart? And you guys would have just had to like circle a yes or a no. And we could have done that. But we can't do that because you could run the function. You could generate the chart. It is the disadvantage of online learning because we need to give online tests, and online tests need to test you on your ability to code and not your ability to memorize theory. I will say, like, the final exam is a test in which I'm really sad because I was at the end of my first year. It was test 3 when COVID hit and sent me home. And I never got to take test 3. However, test 3, he was really happy that test 3 went online because test 3 was designed to be online. It was the only test in which paper made no sense. However, the final exam had content that could be tested on paper and had content that should have been tested on the computer, and now he can only give you that content tested on the computer. I would love to give you the content tested on paper. I would love to give you some of these tricky-dicky multiple choice questions, but you wouldn't. It's not fair because you can just get the answer. It's a free mark. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the final exam. I believe, I do not have it memorized. I believe, however, your final exam is on the last writing slot of the exams. It is during my final exam for 2ME3. Fun course, very fun course. The issue with that is 2ME3 starts its writing slot at 6 o'clock and goes to 10 o'clock, 6 or 7 o'clock. Either way, we get 3 hours to write it, but during those 3 hours, I cannot pull myself away. I legitimately have to be there staring at a screen, coding the exam, and answering the exam questions because it does determine a large chunk of my final grade, which means that I will not be on Piazza. And I won't be on Piazza pretty much that entire day, mainly because I need to study for it. 2ME3 is one of those courses where the exam isn't something you need to be afraid of if you study for it religiously. So I need to study for it religiously. And the trade-off is, as the most active Piazza TA, even though I'm not even the Piazza TA, that's Anna, as one of the more active Piazza TAs, I can't help you. Mark Daniel will make the questions. I will probably pitch him some question ideas. I was responsible for 021 on the last question, on the last test, as well as the bonus question and question 2. I did question 2. Mark Daniel did questions 4A, 4B, and question 1. But yeah. Object-oriented questions were always what I was good at. Nick has already decided on what he wants the object-oriented question on this test to be. I can't say what it is, but good luck. The general consensus we got from test 3 was test 3 was too easy. That was kind of my intent when I was making those questions. I wanted them to be long, and I wanted them to be intimidating, but I wanted them to be straightforward. You code them, you get the answer, you're done. And I felt like I hit that on the nail. The bonus question I thought was going to be evil. People did really well with it. Again, I should have hid more mistakes in it, is what I'm hearing. But the only issue with my questions were the wording, because I was never good at wording questions. I was always good at designing the code. I always needed someone else to make the question. But yeah, so Nick is going to be on making the code in question. Last year, however, Nick had a rule where I would go in to the question completely blind. I would record the entire process. I would be explaining every move I made, and I had to complete the question in a certain amount of time. If I could not complete the question in that time frame, the question had to be changed. That was the rule. That's what we did last year, and it took the nearly impossible question of the checkers question that you guys are now seeing in assignment 8 as the bonus, I believe. Assignment 7 or assignment 8. I think it's assignment 8. Assignment 8's bonus question was last year's midterm question. It was long, it was intimidating. However, there were rewrites that I made to it that broke it down into more steps. Before, it was basically, it was 2 methods, and that was it. It was move and the check valid method. There was nothing else. There was no switch turns. There was There was no nothing. It was hard. It took me 3.5 hours to do on that video, and that was too long. I went to Nick and I'm like, if we give this to the comp size, expect an exam mark in the 60s or hell, even in the 50s. And he's like, that's fair. What do we change? So I suggested breaking into a bit more problems, removing an entire part of the question. I kid you not. And after that, the exam mark went up to, I think, 73 to 75%. And that was comfortable. That's what we were aiming for. It was a challenge, but it wasn't an impossible challenge. And we sadly can't do that to you guys. The time window is going to be much shorter. So 3.5 hours was 3 hours was our target for that question. Nah. For you guys, we're bringing it down to like 2 hours, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. And that's the target. And that's basically what we got to do. So I'm hoping this question is not going to be too difficult. What's another thing I can say about the exam that you guys need to know? Infinite test cases. We did this with test 3. We gave you a game to play instead of giving you test cases. We gave you slots where you had to design your own test cases, a test case playground. We did everything we could to avoid giving you public test cases, and this is going to be true for the exam as well. Nick wants to move away from students relying on test cases. Test cases do not tell you if a program is correct. They tell you if your program is working under those specific inputs. Students very much too often will code only for the public test cases and neglect key sentences of the question. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the questions a lot more dot series of do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then we are hiding really key, sneaky questions where if you had no test cases, you would test for them. And you guys have demonstrated that you can do that. Piazza's filled with brilliant edge case questions during the tests. You guys always surprise me with the ability to come up with tests where we never even considered it. And yeah, that's what we want. We want you guys to ask those questions. We want you guys to create public tests and account for these errors and all of these small things. So, to me, I thought that it went really well. Some students may not agree. Some students really like the public test cases. Some people give us crap for not including them. But we are going to avoid giving you public test cases when possible. We will still give you 1 or 2. Giving you 0 was a bit harsh. For the game method, giving you 0 test cases was a bit harsh. But at the end of the day, you guys need to be able to test your own code, to get your own answers. And that's what we really wanted to demonstrate. So that's, I think, all I can tell you about the exam. Nothing's been finalized. Nothing's even really been made for it yet, because we're trying to gauge where all the tutorials leave off, where the lectures really get to shine, and we're trying to ask ourselves, would it be fair based off of what you guys saw to put it on test? And for the most part, we're saying yeah. JSON, absolutely. I would be shocked if, after how well JSON was covered, in my opinion at least, we do not include JSON. Because yeah, I would straight up give you guys JSON, because I have a JSON file of well over line length of 24,000 lines of generated data that I could ask you guys to work with, and I've already given it to Nick, and I've like, hey, if you want something to work with, here's a JSON file for you. I genuinely think this could be made into a test question. But at the end of the day, nothing's been picked yet. But yeah, like JSON on the board. Recursion's 100% on the board. In fact, we've been rather light in terms of recursion. on the last test in the recent material, so recursion is probably going to make a big comeback. Recursive class definitions, we didn't get to see the binary tree on test 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if recursive class definitions made an appearance. I definitely would say study for them. I cannot tell you if they're going to be on the test or not because I don't even know, but I would recommend testing for them. Yeah, this one thing I can say, 1MD3 has a really horrible reputation. Our exams are tedious, like tediously long. The exam from my year took me 7 hours, and I was considered a fast coder. The class average of that exam was in the low 70s. I did get I got a perfect 100 on it though. Like I put in the time and I got the grade. But even after dedicating a lot of time, there are a lot of marks to be lost and a lot of time to be wasted. Last year's exam, people, we tried to fix the long exam problem. We tried to make it so it wouldn't take you 7 hours. It would only take you, the ideal was 5 hours, 5.5 hours total. And that was the cutoff point. If you were coding longer than that, then we clearly failed. And for the most part, people were like, yeah, no, we hit it, except for one question, and that was the boss question, checkers. That question was worth well over 50% of the final the exam mark. It was hard, it was long, it was tedious, and yeah, it sucked. 1MD3 has a very bad reputation when it comes to exams. We're hoping this year, because this is our third attempt at an online exam. This is my third attempt at an online exam. The summer course had an online exam, pretty similar complaints apparently. But I'm hoping that we can create an exam question in which is in the structure of checkers, but is nowhere near to the difficulty. An infinite test case, a game with rules that you could play, very little to zero public test cases, just things that you can test. And that's my hope anyways. I can't promise whether or not that's going to be true, but we can hope. We can very much hope. What else can I tell you to stay? 2D lists, two-dimensional arrays, lists. Please, for the love of God, study your 2D array lists, whatever you want to call them. Do it, please. They will guaranteed 100%. I'm not BSing you when I say they will appear on the final exam. They have been on every final exam for years. It's never hidden. We're never quiet about it. We always. That's why Sudoku uses them. That's why the checkers question used them. Like, we want you guys to get comfortable with doing them. Okay, so I'm switching over to my office hours now. I have been online as long as I feel is necessary. Quick notification, if you're watching this, I'm doing office hours differently this week due to how crappy my stomach feels. Even still now, I'm going to be doing a direct one-on-one office hours to grant me the ability to sneak off to do whatever I need if I have to. You guys can directly message me if you need, but Ooh, sorry. You guys can directly message me if you need. However, it's not going to be my normal style. Anyways, bye bye, guys.